Come in, dear friend. There's no need to hurry. Take your time. The cave is wide and still, and the stones have held the warmth of the sun all day. The path behind you has done its work. You've arrived, and here is enough. Sit, if you'd like. Just there, near the fire. I've left space beside me. Just so, the flames have calmed now, low and steady, and they cast the kind of light that makes even the old rock walls seem to breathe a little easier. You see how the shadows stretch along the cave's belly, like sleeping hounds. That's a good sign. Even the dark knows to rest here. A breeze stirs from the cave's mouth, soft as a sigh, carrying pine and wood smoke. You can taste it, can't you? That sharp sweetness, like resin kissed by flame. I always find it comforting. It smells like memory, like campfires long gone and evenings that asked for nothing more than your quiet company. And there he is, my old companion across the fire. He doesn't speak, not tonight. Just lifts that carved pipe to his lips and smiles. A knowing sort of smile, the kind that doesn't need to explain itself. He's been here for a while already. I'd wager. He never rushes, never breaks the hush. Just watches the sparks rise as though they carry old stories on their backs. Perhaps they do. Listen, do you hear that? Not just the crackling of the wood, though it's there, each pop like a tiny footstep into the past, but deeper still, there's a rhythm, the stones settling, the wind circling round the cave's mouth, the world breathing slow and even, just like us. This cave, it has held many voices, you know, not all spoken aloud. Some were just the rustle of a cloak being folded, or the sound of two friends sharing silence. But they linger, those moments. The walls remember, I think. They soften to welcome you back, like a familiar quilt left waiting. Just nay, you stir here. They're stum glad of it. Truly I am. Your shoulders, let them drop. You've been carrying enough today. There's nothing that asks for your strength here. Only your presence. That's all this place has ever wanted. A soul to sit with, a heart to be near. The stars are bright tonight. If you peer past the cave's mouth, past the firelight, you might glimpse them strewn across the sky like powdered silver. I've always liked watching them from here. They seem closer somehow, not so distant or cold, as though they too have come to listen. I used to imagine that every star was a quiet lantern hung by some thoughtful hand long ago, just in case we ever found ourselves wandering in the dark. That idea used to comfort me. Still does. Funny, isn't it? The thoughts that stay. Would you like a blanket? There's one just behind you, wool, soft with use. It smells faintly of lavender. Not fresh, mind you, more like lavender remembered. I laid it out earlier, hoping you'd come. Some places make us believe, don't they? Believe that someone will arrive, even if we don't know when. This cave is one of those places. The pipe smoke is curling now, thin ribbons rising into the cool night. He's not much for words anymore, the old storyteller, but his presence says enough. Steady, rooted, like the hearth itself. He's been part of my winters and my wandering, and now he's simply here. That's enough. That's always been enough. We won't need much tonight. No grand tales or heavy truths, just this. The hush between firelight and starshine, between breath and word. That's where the heart softens. That's where peace grows. And so we begin, not with a story, but with a pause, a shared stillness, the kind you don't find often in the world beyond the ridge. But here, in the cave, with the fire steady and the walls breathing low and easy, Time folds its wings. Here, my friend, you are safe. You fear home. There it is. Take a moment, won't you? Just there at the cave's edge. Let your gaze settle beyond the firelight, beyond the smoke curling upward in slow spirals. The valley stretches out like an old quilt below us, folded into the arms of the hills. Everything is hushed now, as though the whole world has leaned in close, listening. It's a good view, isn't it? One of my favorites. You can see nearly to the far woods on a clear night like this. And tonight? Oh, tonight is clear as polished glass. The stars have gathered overhead in quiet procession, each one lit as if to guide some wandering thought gently back to rest. See there? Just above the western ridge, that faint streak of the Milky Way. It always reminds me of chalk dust scattered across a black velvet tunic. That's how I once described it to a scribe who'd never left the abbey walls. He laughed and said, I had a poet's heart. I told him I had tired eyes and too many cold watches beneath the stars, that's all. But here, in this cave, the sky feels closer. The stars not so high, as if they descend and rest on your shoulder. If only you ask softly enough. I've watched them for many years from this very spot, and still they never quite look the same. Some nights they shimmer like song. Other nights they seem to hold still, as if listening with us. And that valley below, do you see those little glimmers, spaced just so? Lantern lights from distant farms, the kind that swing from old iron hooks or rest in round windowsills, glowing amber through glass. Each one a quiet hearth, a family settling in, a cat curling beside an oven, a kettle whispering, children pressed cheek to cheek in sleep. There's something comforting in knowing those lives go on, even when we can't see them clearly. Just a flicker here, a glow there. It reminds me that not all light has to burn bright. Some of it merely keeps the dark company. Beneath us, the hill drops gently, soft with wild grass and cradled stones. The wind, when it stirs, carries with it the scent of crushed thyme and the faintest trace of sheep's wool, not strong, just enough to know the flocks have passed through recently. There's a small path that winds down along the slope, though it's overgrown now, only remembered by boots like mine and the hooves of the shepherd's pony. The stone underfoot here in the cave is still warm from the day. It always holds the sun longer than I expect. Sit down and you'll feel it, there through the blanket, that gentle heat, like the last kind touch of someone about to leave the room. It reminds me that the day was here, even if it's gone now. Look around the cave walls, just behind us. In the dim firelight, you might see the faint marks, old stories painted in ochre and ash. They're nearly lost now. Moss has begun its quiet work of reclaiming the stone, softening the edges of what once were clear scenes, horses, rivers, stars, open hands. No one knows who first made them, and perhaps that's fitting. Not all tales need names attached. Some are meant only to be witnessed, then forgotten kindly. I often wonder who else sat here before us. Did they speak, or did they watch the valley in silence, just as we do now? Were they old, with knees that creak in the cold, or young and restless, clinging to the night for answers it never promised to give? Either way, they left the space better than they found it. That much I can feel. You hear that? Off in the distance, the low, mournful call of an owl. Steady, deliberate, a voice carved from the dusk, and if you listen closely, just beyond that, can you hear it? That faint ribbon of sound, its flute music, drifting up from the village far below, likely someone still dancing by lantern light, their steps soft on packed earth, a festival perhaps, or a wedding. It's strange, isn't it, how joy can travel so far without losing itself. That tune has wound its way through fields and forests, across water and stone, only to land gently here, just for us. And we didn't even ask for it. It simply arrived, like all the best things do. I used to think the wind was a messenger. When I was a child, I imagined it carried whispers between places, trailing secrets like threads. Now I think it carries reminders instead, not of what's said, but of what's felt. Tonight it reminds me that we are small. Yes, but we are not forgotten. Even the air in here is different than beyond the cave. There's a coolness to it. Yes, but not a harsh one. More like the chill of linen sheets just before they warm to your skin. You breathe it in, and it slows you down, makes your shoulders drop, makes the heart speak in softer tones. The fire's dancing now, low and golden, not in a hurry, just enough to push back the dark from our corner of the world. I think fires behave differently when there's nothing to prove, when their job is only to soothe. There's a comfort in stillness, don't you think? In having nowhere to be. But here, the world beyond the valley can wait. Its demands, its tumults, they'll still be there when morning comes. But tonight is not theirs. Tonight belongs to the hush, to the moss and the music, and the light that lingers even after the flame. And so we let the cave hold us, just as it has held so many before. Let it cradle the quiet between our words. Let it remind us that peace isn't something to chase. It's something you arrive at when you've let go of everything else. We'll stay here as long as you like. There's no clock to wind, no bell to strike. Only this breath, this warmth, this shared stillness stretched across the valley like soft wool. Rest easy now, my companion. The world is asleep, and we are wrapped in its dreaming. This stone suits me well enough, rounded by time and just warm where the firelight reaches. I've taken to leaning here whenever I return. It cradles the back. If you find just the right angle, here, feel it for yourself. Go on. It's worn smooth by years of sitting, thinking, remembering. Strange, isn't it? How some rocks feel like they were waiting for you all along. You'll notice I've laid my helm beside me. No need for it here. Not anymore. It's seen enough days under the sun, enough nights damp with worry. Let it rest as I do now. It glints a little in the firelight, just enough to remind me it's still mine, but not so much that it asks to be worn. And this armor, well, yes, it still fits more or less. A touch looser in some places, tighter in others. The metal knows the shape of me better than I do, I think. These days it's more ceremonial than needed, more habit than necessity. But I find comfort in the weight of it, not as burden, no, as memory. Each scuff has its own small tale, that one near the left pauldron, a stubborn apple tree with a low branch that refused to move, and the dent near the knee, not from battle but from kneeling too long in the chapel after my brother's son was born. I stayed till the candles burned low and the stone grew cold beneath my bones, worth every creak that came after. Time reshapes a man, my friend. Not all at once. It does its work in slow, unnoticed ways. A touch more gray here, a stiffness there, a changed rhythm in the breath. And yet, somehow I feel more myself than I ever did when I was younger and stronger. Funny how that works, isn't it? There was a time when I stood watch over this valley, up high in the old tower near the ridge. My task was simple: to look, to listen, and to light the signal flame should anything stir beyond the hills. I remember the wind being sharper then, or perhaps I was just less patient with the cold. Night after night, I'd pace along the ledge, hand on hilt, eyes squinting against the dark, always alert, always waiting for something. I thought that was what made a knight: honorable preparedness, readiness. But now I know stillness requires more courage than I ever guessed. Sitting here, without purpose pressing in, I found a different sort of strength. Back then, I measured life in seasons of vigilance, in the change of shift, the polish of steel, the tightening of leather straps. I thought to serve meant to stand, but now I serve differently. I serve by remembering, by listening, by witnessing the quiet beauty of this place I once guarded. There's a peace in letting go of duty, not all of it, mind, but the kind that kept me looking outward for meaning. Now I look inward, and I find the stars still speak, just as they did when I was a boy lying on the thatch roof behind my father's stable. I used to count them one by one until sleep found me. I still count them sometimes, though I forget where I began and end most nights. You see, my eyes may not be as sharp, but they still know the shape of constellations. That one there, to the east. That's the Watcher's crown, 5 stars in an arc. I once believed it was named for knights like me, always looking out, but I think now it's named for those who see, not just look, and that's a different thing entirely. I suppose I've become quieter with age. Not solemn, no, just more inclined to listen. The world doesn't shout the way I once believed. It whispers, and if you're always busy chasing noise, you'll miss it. Now, I find joy in the small sounds, the hush of moss underfoot, the way firewood sighs before it gives in to flame, the distant call of an owl echoing off stone. These are the songs I carry now. It wasn't always like this, of course. I've known noise. I've marched beneath banners, ridden under storm clouds, shouted orders across fields of mud. But none of that follows me here. Not truly. What remains are the echoes softened, like the scent of old parchment, or the way candlelight lives in memory long after the wick is gone. And so I sit, here beside the fire, not because I have nowhere else to be, but because I've come to choose stillness, to welcome it as an old companion returned after many years abroad. There is a richness in quiet things, the way the firelight dances along the cave walls, the flicker of your eyes when the warmth reaches you, the way your breath slows, just a little when you know you're safe. That's what this place offers, not escape, not forgetfulness, but rest. A gentle kind, the kind that wraps itself around your bones and hums them into ease. You don't need to do anything tonight, my friend. No stories to recite, no truths to uncover. Just be here, with me. As I am, as I've become, an old knight. Yes, one who no longer keeps the watch, but still watches. One who no longer bears arms, but still carries the shape of care. One whose body has slowed, but whose spirit has grown lighter with each year the weight of duty was set down. So come, rest here with me. Let the fire speak its peace. Let the stars do their good work above us. There is no measure of worth here, no task to fulfill. Only breath, only time, only the slow unfolding of all that matters. And if you should fall asleep beside me, with your head against the stone and the warmth of the fire on your face, know this: you are exactly where you are meant to be, just as I am. We've traveled far, you and I, not in miles, but in moments. And tonight we've arrived at a quiet place worth staying in for a while longer. There's a quiet kind of magic to tradition, wouldn't you say? Not the kind that shouts or sparkles, but the sort that settles into your bones over time. The kind you don't need to announce or explain. It simply is, and has been, and continues gently, like a lantern lit, year after year at the same quiet hour. This cave, our cave really, has held many such evenings. Once each year when the moon hangs a little fuller and the winds carry more memory than chill, I return. And he does too, my old friend, the storyteller. He with the pipe and the smile that doesn't rush to speak. We never plan it aloud, never send word ahead. We simply arrive as if something older than either of us whispers, "Tonight is the night." And so it is. We take our places, me against this stone ledge, he cross-legged near the fire, his robes gathering the dust like they've done 100 times before. And then we wait until one of us begins, not because it's expected, but because something inside us stirs softly enough to rise, a memory perhaps, or a half-formed thought that's been warming all year like bread near the hearth. Tonight, dear friend, I believe the telling falls to me. It's not a grand tale, no trumpets or triumphs, just a quiet thing that happened on a summer night long ago when the world was green and the sky was warm and I was in one of those moods where the heart feels heavier than the armor ever did. And walked into the woods without meaning to. That happens sometimes. One step becomes two, and before you know it, the walls of the world fall away, and the trees have taken you in. The air was still, the sort that holds its breath with you, and the only sound was the hush of leaves and the occasional creak of a branch too long unbothered. Then I saw it, a flicker, small, gold, uncertain, just there near the edge of the underbrush, a firefly, alone. Now, I've seen thousands of them before, mind you. They gather thick around midsummer, blinking in and out of sight, like thoughts that never quite take shape. But something about this one, it lingered, it hovered low like it was waiting, not flitting about in erratic circles, but still watching me, almost. And before I knew it, I stepped toward it. It didn't flee, it simply moved, slowly just ahead, so I followed, not out of curiosity, exactly, more like agreement, as though we both knew this wasn't a chase, but a walk we'd agreed to take together. It led me deeper, winding past mossy logs and the remains of what once might have been a stone fence, now claimed by ivy and time. The kind of places the map forgets, but your feet remember. I could smell elderflowers blooming in the dark, feel the earth softening beneath my boots, as though it had recently drunk deep from a summer rain, and all the while the firefly stayed ahead, always just close enough to keep within reach, never quite inviting a touch. Eventually, we came to a clearing, round, quiet, the kind of place you feel before you see. The trees curved back, as though leaning to let the stars speak, and in the middle, nestled in moss and shadow, was a stone, a sundial to be precise, cracked down its center, its gnomon long gone, forgotten by most surely, but not by the firefly. It hovered there, above that broken face of time, casting its tiny light where no sun could reach. I remember standing there, not moving, not thinking, just thinking, the way one might in a chapel when no one else is inside, and the dust in the air looks like old prayers still hanging in the beams. I sat beside the sundial, and the firefly circled once, twice, then rose high, high, and vanished into the canopy. Gone, just like that. Not a goodbye, just a departure. But it had done what it came to do. I stayed there for a long while, the hours, perhaps, listening to the trees breathe, watching the stars settle into their places, tracing the worn lines of the sundial's face with my fingers, wondering who once stood there at noon and watched the shadow fall. And I felt whole, not mended, no, not patched, oh, repaired, just whole in the way a stone is whole. Even when cracked, even when weathered, it remains, it endures, and in that endurance there is a peace. When I finally rose, the world hadn't changed, not in the way one might expect from a tale. No visions, no revelations, just the deep, slow rhythm of the earth continuing beneath my feet. But I had changed, or perhaps remembered something I'd forgotten. I walked back in silence, the same path, though it felt different now. And when I stepped out of the woods and saw the tower light flickering in the distance, I didn't hurry toward it. I let the night linger around me just a while longer. You see, my friend, not all quests are made of dragons and distant lands. Some are made of a single firefly, a broken sundial, and a quiet moment beneath old trees. That sips the kind of tale we trade in this cave, not for record, not for legacy, but simply to say, I was there. I felt that it mattered to me. And perhaps, as you sit here beside me now, it matters to you as well. Not because of what happened, but because of how gently it arrived. The storyteller across the fire is nodding now. He remembers, or at least, he remembers his own firefly, his own quiet quest. We all have one, I think. Maybe not the same shape, but the same softness, the same invitation. So let this be tonight's offering. A story lit like a lantern in a clearing, left here for whoever might wander by. Not to teach, not to warn, simply to accompany. Thank you for walking with me through it, for listening, for allowing the silence between words to mean something. There'll be another story, perhaps, before the night grows too deep, or perhaps not. Some evenings, the telling is done with just one small flame. Let's sit here a while longer. The fire's still warm. The stars have settled into their hush. And the cave remembers us. Let me stay with that memory a while longer, will you? That night in the woods, the one the firefly led me through, it lingers not like a story I recall, but like a feeling I return to. The deeper I walked, the quieter the world became. It wasn't silence exactly, more like the absence of interruption. The wind still moved through the branches, leaves whispered against one another, like old friends sharing secrets. And now and again a distant owl would call, never urgent, just announcing its presence, as if to say, I'm here too, and all is well. And then I came to it. The clearing, not carved by hands or planned by path, but shaped slowly, gently by time, as if the forest itself had taken a breath and opened its palm to the sky. Right in the middle sat the sundial, or rather what remained of one. It was tilted just so, sunken on one side where the roots had crept beneath it over the years. The gnomon, the upright piece that cast the shadow, was missing, long since taken by time or weather, or perhaps someone who needed a scrap of iron more than a keeper of hours. But the face was still there, half buried in moss, the numbers barely legible, softened by rain and sun and seasons. And yet, even in its brokenness, it held something sacred, the kind of presence that makes you slow your breath. I remember how the moonlight touched it, silvering the stone so that it seemed almost to glow from within. I couldn't help but sit beside it. I didn't plan to stay till dawn, but I did. My legs folded, my hands resting loosely in my lap. I simply sat. The moon drifted above us. The stars turned their slow wheel, and somewhere in that hush, I stopped needing the moment to mean anything more than what it was. A man and a stone and the sky between them. Time, I think, moves differently in places like that. Not slower, but gentler, as if it's walking barefoot. The sundial wasn't the only thing I found, of course. Over the years, in those in-between places, between duty and dream, between road and return, I've gathered little moments that remain with me, not because they were grand, but because they were quiet and kind. Would you like to hear another? There was a morning, I couldn't say exactly where, only that it was somewhere near the border of the old orchard country, just as the fog was beginning to lift from the fields. I'd made camp near a low wall of stacked stones, and while folding my blanket, I heard something soft, clear, and utterly out of place. A song, not sung, but played, on a flute, or something like it. A high, lonesome melody curling through the morning air like steam rising from a cup. There was no rhythm to it, only flow, a wandering tune that seemed made for the sky. I stood very still, not wanting to disturb it. The sound came from nowhere, and everywhere at once, the kind of song that makes you feel as though the world has turned translucent, and for a breath or two, you're made of light and longing. It didn't last long, just a minute perhaps. Then it faded as if whoever had played it had moved on or melted into the mist. I never saw a soul, never heard it again, but that melody, it stayed, still does. Not in the ears, but in the spaces between thoughts. Then there was the stranger. A woman, I think. Cloaked, with her face turned low beneath her hood. I'd paused along the riverbank to mend a strap on my satchel. She approached without sound and knelt beside me. Didn't speak. Just reached into her sleeve and placed something in my hand. A small carved acorn, perfectly smooth, polished from handling, about the size of a coin, but heavier than it looked. She didn't wait for thanks, didn't offer a name, just nodded once and stepped away, vanishing down a side path I hadn't even noticed before. I sat with that acorn in my palm for a long time. Still have it, you know. Carried it for years right beside the flint and tinder. What it meant, I couldn't tell you. But not all gifts are given to be understood. Some are simply meant to be held, to be wondered at, to remind you that even when you're alone, you're not forgotten. So, I've come to think of these moments as threads, not golden ones, not grand, just simple twine, woven gently through the tapestry of days. Together they form the part of me that exists apart from duty, the part that watches the way candlelight leans towards silence, the part that notices when a breeze smells like rosemary, or when moss grows in the shape of a sleeping hare. Do you know that feeling, when something small, even passing, settles in you and refuses to leave, not as burden, but as quiet belonging? There was a hill, once just a grassy mound, halfway between two villages, where I stopped to rest beneath a hawthorn tree. It was the warm season. The bees were slow and drowsy, and carved into the bark just above my head were the words, "He waited, and the waiting changed him." No name, no date, just that. The say. I remember tracing the letters with my fingertip, the bark cool beneath my touch. I don't know who wrote it, or whom they waited for, but I sat a while, and let the wind pass over me and thought, yes, the waiting does change us. It teaches us stillness. It sharpens the edges of longing. It teaches us to listen, even when there's no reply. And then there are places that hum in your bones when you enter them. A certain bridge with a hollow echo, a ruined chapel where ivy has become the choir, a well so old that its stones weep, even in summer. I don't go looking for them. They find me usually, as if some old part of the world recognizes a kindred spirit and whispers, here, pause here. I suppose what I'm saying, dear one, is that discovery doesn't always wear a loud coat. It doesn't trumpet its arrival or ask you to follow. More often it brushes past your sleeve and leaves a single petal behind. And in noticing that petal, its color, its weight, its momentary grace, you discover something else, something inside yourself you hadn't realized was waiting to be found. That's what these stories are, I think. Not events, not records, but gentle reminders of what matters when all else falls away. A broken sundial lit by moonlight. A song that lasted 1 minute and a lifetime. A carved acorn gifted without a word. A sentence in a tree, carved by hands I never met. All of them quiet. All of them real. And now I've placed them here between us, on the firelit floor of this cave. Not as burdens, but as offerings. Bits of thread, soft and fine, waiting to be woven into the warmth of tonight. You don't have to remember them all. Just let them settle where they may. They'll do their own work. Let's be still together now, just for a little while longer. Let the fire speak its small language. Let the stone beneath us hum its old song. We've found enough for one evening, I think. And whatever else waits for us, out there in the hills or inside the slow unfolding of our own hearts, it can wait until morning. The fire's lower now, not fading, exactly, just quieter, settled. It crackles now and then, but even that sound seems to move slowly, like it's thinking about whether to speak at all. It's in moments like this, my friend, when the hush feels deeper than quiet itself. Not empty, but full in its own soft way. I used to think silence meant the absence of something, a void waiting to be filled. But I've come to see it differently. Silence, real silence, isn't emptiness. It's presence. It's what's left when all the needless things have set themselves down. It's what remains when the world finally exhales. And in that space, when no one is trying to prove or press or explain, love can bloom quietly, without demand. There's a kind of love, you see, that speaks not in declarations, but in patience. A love that waits for your words to finish echoing before it even thinks to reply. The kind of love that understands the sacredness of simply being beside. Not every companion needs to fill the air. Some just sit near you, offering the weight of their presence like a blanket on your shoulders. And that, to me, is one of the truest forms of care. The storyteller knows that. He always has. Look at him now, if you like. His legs tucked beneath his cloak, his pipe long since cooled. He's humming, low and steady. No melody meant for performance, just a tune that stirs up memory like wind stirring ash. I haven't heard it in decades, and yet the moment it touched the air, I knew every note. It's an old lullaby. My mother used to hum it when she thought no one was listening. Never sang it out loud, just under her breath, while folding linen or pressing herbs. I'd lie in the loft above the stable and let the sound drift up like steam, soft and warm. I never asked her what it meant. I didn't need to. It meant what it felt like, safety. And now, here it is again, rising across the fire from an old friend whose voice has aged like mine, but still knows how to carry comfort. It amazes me how sound can hold time. There are rituals I've long forgotten, the names of noble houses, the vows recited before council, but a single thread of song that stays tucked somewhere in the folds of the heart where no wind can reach. We've lost so many little rituals over the years, haven't we? Not the grand ceremonies. They're still remembered in the halls, polished and repeated. I mean the small ones. The quiet gestures passed from one hand to the next, like lighting the first candle before dawn, or placing a piece of bread beside a stream in springtime, just in case the spirits were still watching. Not because we feared them, but because it felt right to be gentle with the unseen. Not as those things, the texture they gave the day, the softness they wove into habit. I remember my grandfather bent-backed and silent most mornings, but every new moon he sipped sprinkle lavender near the door and whisper something I was never quite close enough to hear. When I asked him why, he sipped only smile and say, "Not all things are for remembering, some are for continuing." And so I do. Every new moon. I do it just once. A small scattering, a whispered nothing, and something inside me feels aligned again. Not explained, just eased. Not a shear, a fist in saddles versus trains. That's what presence is, I think. The art of continuing, of showing up for the quiet things, for the people who don't always ask, but always notice. For the tasks no one records, but someone feels. And it's not always a grand undertaking. Sometimes it's as simple as tending a fire that no one else sees, or offering a hand to someone who doesn't know how to ask, or listening, truly listening, when another shares not what's loudest in them, but what's most tender. These are the moments that make us, not the battles. Not the triumphs sung by others, but the stillness we keep and offer and protect. I've come to believe that being present is a form of devotion, a kind of everyday prayer. You needn't kneel or fold your hands. You need only stay, fully, quietly, kindly. There's a warmth in that, a warmth not made by fire but by awareness, like now. Sitting here beside you, in the hush of this cave, with the embers glowing low and the night pressing soft against the stone, I feel that warmth. It's not from speech or from sharing some mighty truth. It's from the simple fact that we are here, together, and neither of us needs to fill the space with more than breath. Even this stone beneath me feels different when shared, its cold edges softened by companionship, its stillness less alone. Do you feel it too? That gentle sense that nothing more is needed, that the world just for this moment is whole. It doesn't come often, that feeling. But when it does, I've learned to notice it, to name it not with words, but with gratitude. Gratitude for the way fire casts dancing shadows. Gratitude for the rhythm of wind brushing past the cave mouth. Gratitude for you, sitting here, offering your presence with the same quiet grace that made the moon linger tonight. I think often about the people I've met who taught me the shape of this piece. Not through lectures or commands, but through the way they carried themselves through silence. There was a stable hand once, in the court of the Western Keep. I never knew his name. He never spoke unless spoken to, but he'd hum, always while brushing the horses, a slow, low sound that felt more like breathing than music. It made the animals calm. It made me calm. I learned more about steadiness from him than from any knight I ever squired beneath. And an old weaver I met by the coast, her fingers bent with age, her sight nearly gone, but she could still feel the threads, could still create beauty. I asked her once how she did it, and she said, "You don't always need to see. Sometimes you just need to trust your hands." Trust your hands. That stayed with me, because sometimes we try too hard to understand things, don't we? To put meaning into boxes. But not everything wants to be explained. Some things only want to be held, gently, as they are. So much of peace, I think, comes not from figuring things out, but from letting them be, and letting ourselves be. I'm still learning that, even now, old as I am. But nights like this bring me closer, closer to that deeper rhythm, that softer truth. You help, you know. Just by sitting here, just by listening with your whole heart. That's rare. That's a gift. You remind me that presence is powerful, not because it sets loud, but because it sets real. And as the fire burns lower and the shadows stretch longer, I find myself smiling more often, not at anything in particular, just because I am here, because you are too, because some nights don't need answers, only company, and tonight is one of those nights. Let's stay in this stillness a while longer, you and I. Let the tune across the fire fade as it will. Let the hush rise to greet it. Let the warmth we've gathered tonight carry us gently through the dark. Sleep may come soon, but even before it does, let's just be here, breathing, remembering, resting. That sip's enough, more than enough, and I thank you for it. Look at the stars, my dear friend. See how they've begun their slow descent, how they slip, gentle and unhurried, behind the black velvet edge of the world. It's a quiet sort of falling, isn't it? As though the night itself is bowing its head, ready to sleep. They always move like that near dawn, softly, not with finality, but with permission. As if to say, you've seen enough for now, rest. We'll be here when you wake. And the fire, well, it's begun to change too, no longer leaping, no longer asking for attention, just a low cradle of red and orange, pulsing faintly like a heartbeat remembered. I gave it one more log just now, not to ward off the cold, not to keep us talking longer than the night would allow, only so it might stay lit a while longer. For you, for this moment. You don't need to speak. If your eyelids are heavy, that's all right. I don't mind the quiet. In fact, I find it soothing, that kind of hush that only settles in when two souls trust the space between them. I've always found this time, the in-between, most sacred. Not night, not morning, just a seam of stillness stitched between both. The last edge of the dark, where even the stars hold their breath and the wind forgets where it was going. It feels like closure somehow, not an ending. No, never that, but a settling, like the final page of a letter folded, closed with care, or the last note of a song that lingers in the air a moment longer than expected. You've been good company tonight, and I mean that deeply, not just kindly. The sort of company that doesn't rush the rhythm, the kind that listens not only with the ears but with presence. That's rare and precious, and not something I'll soon forget. You know, when I was younger, I used to think peace was something to be earned, something that came only after the work, after the proving, a reward for the ones who finished the longest marches or made the right choices. But now, I believe peace is something far simpler and far kinder. I think peace arrives when we stop holding our breath, when we let go of needing the moment to be anything more than what it is, when we sit like this beside the same fire and allow ourselves to simply exist without explanation. That's what you've given me tonight, and what I hope I've given you. I know the world can be a tangle. Days don't always unfold like songs. Sometimes they fray, sometimes they not. But here, in this cave with the stars sliding down their sky and the fire humming low, we are untangled. Even my old bones have noticed the difference. My shoulders rest easier. My breath flows fuller. I've sat with many people over the years, in many corners of the world, but not all evenings settle into the soul like this one has. Maybe it's the cave, or the stories, or the warmth that lingers even in the quietest part of the night. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the simple miracle of presence. Yours, mine, and the way they've met without need or plan or pomp. The storytellers dozed off, I think. You hear that? His breath has taken on the rhythm of sleep, a soft rise and fall. Steady. That's a good sound, a true sound. It means we've done something right tonight. Outside, I can hear the trees brushing against one another, a sleepy rustle, not the sharp wind of evening, just a shifting like cloaks being adjusted before sleep. And if you listen closely, you might hear the distant sigh of the valley. Yes, there. That low hum almost too soft to notice. That's the sound the land makes when it rests. And we're part of it now. For these few hours, we are not watchers or wanderers or bearers of any task. We're simply another hush in the wide breath of the world. The fire's glow is turning deeper now. Less flame, more coal. But it still gives enough light to see your face, softened in thought or sleep or something quiet in between. I'll sit a while longer. Don't worry about me. My body may be older, but it knows how to wait. Especially for peace like this. I'll watch the fire a bit. I'll trace the patterns the smoke draws as it drifts upward toward the cave's mouth. Sometimes, if I'm lucky, the smoke catches a sliver of moonlight on its way out and turns to silver before vanishing. No one believes me when I tell them that, but it happens, not often, but just enough. And the stars, they go, the last few, dipping below the hills, like lanterns being gently lowered behind curtains. I used to think they watched us, now I think they simply accompany us. Like quiet friends on a long road, present but never asking. Like you. So many people chase meaning, as if it's something hidden in corners or carved in stone. But I've found most meaning lives in moments like this, in firelit eyes and long silences, in the soft settling of breath, in the knowledge that for at least one night you were truly here with someone who truly noticed. That ain't stretching, desimendous. And so, I thank you. Thank you for walking the path up the hill, for stepping into this cave, for choosing, however briefly, to rest beside me in a night carved not by clocks, but by care. So, yes, I keep the fire lit a little while longer. Not for me, I've had my warmth, but for you, just in case you drift off slowly and wish to wake to light, not shadow. It's a small thing, I know, but sometimes small things are what shape the world. So rest now, dear friend. I'll be here, just a few steps from sleep myself, watching the last curl of smoke, listening to the valley sigh, keeping company with the stars, even as they fade. Tonight has been enough, and I am grateful. The night has settled now, my dear one, fully and gently, like a heavy cloak drawn over weary shoulders. Even the fire has softened into a hush, its embers glowing steady beneath the cradle of ash, like little hearts still pulsing, but with no rush to burn. The storyteller has fallen quiet. His breath is slow and sure, his pipe long since cooled. No more songs tonight, no more tales, only silence and the kind of warmth that lingers in the space between two friends who understand that nothing more needs to be said. And you, my starlit companion, I see the weight falling from your eyes, the way sleep has begun to gather at the corners, like gentle fog on morning glass. Let it come. Don't hold it back for me. You've listened well with more than ears, with heart and presence and stillness. That's a rare gift, one I'll remember. The stars are fewer now. Most have dipped beneath the hills, but a few remain, keeping their quiet watch above us. One flickers just above the mouth of the cave. That one. There, I like to think it's listening too, or perhaps dreaming. Stars must dream of something, don't you think? Maybe of the fires we build here below. Maybe of stories whispered at the edge of sleep. You've given this night such peace, simply by being part of it. And now, as sleep draws near, I offer you only this, the stillness you've earned, the safety of this cave, the rhythm of the embers, the hush of the hills. Let your breath ease now. Let your limbs soften into rest. You're safe. You're not alone. You're held by stone, by story, by starlight. And let's stay a while longer, just here, watching the last trails of smoke rise, curling up toward that dreaming star. No need for words now, unless they're the kind that drift through your thoughts like feathers, light and fleeting. You don't have to follow them. Just let them pass. Let them rest, like you. Sleep well, my starlit companion. That'll be here, beside the fire, watching the stories rise. Just a little longer,